Welcome to Wednesdays with William. This is our first session for the year 2018. Today we'll be talking about reporting options in Sage 300 General Ledger. My name is William Wingson, and I've done a few of these, and this year I intend to do quite a few more Wednesdays with William. I'm trying to get it down to a weekly basis. Okay, so the agenda that I'll be covering today, I will be talking about the crystal reports. And I am trying to limit myself to the general ledger module. I'll also talk about reports, built-in financial reporter reports. I will do a comparison with the intelligence reporting. And we will also discuss briefly the intelligence reporting cloud. There is a difference between intelligence reporting and the intelligence reporting cloud. Okay, so let's get started. First, I'll do a high-level comparison of these the three main products, and then later on I'll talk about the Sage Intelligence Cloud. So the Sage Intelligence product and the financial reporter, both of these are Excel-based reports. They use Excel. So a lot of people find them easy to use or relatively easy to use. With the financial reporter, however, you have to use some specific codes, and you might have to spend some time learning about these codes. The financial reporter accesses only only GL data. The Sage 300 intelligence reporting, however, you can get information in other modules. So you can create reports based on non-GL modules. For example, if you wanted to find something in AP or create a report in AP, you could use the intelligence reporting. In fact, you can even use a different database. It doesn't have to be Sage 300. For example, you can create a report from CRM and also Sage 300. Multi-company consolidations can be handled by the Sage Intelligence reporting product, but cannot be done with the financial reporter. It's a single company reporting only. Okay. Those are some of the key differences. If I were to extend that comparison, some people say that the Sage Intelligence is more interactive because in the financial reporter, once you run it out, if you wanted to make a change of setting, then you would have to go back to the criteria and maybe change the date, for example, change the parameter, and then run it again. With the Sage Intelligence reporting, all you have to do is, if the parameter is available, you just look at it, you just change the year and it will automatically change the data. So you don't have to close the report and then reopen it or run it again. With the intelligence reporting and the crystal reports, they both come with custom reports and standard reports. The intelligence report, a lot of people, this is a common opinion especially among accountants, that the intelligence report is way easier to learn simply because it is Excel based. As opposed to Crystal, you have to go and learn how to use Crystal reports. While it's not overly complicated, I mean, it's doable. The question is, do you want to spend time learning it? It's a very powerful tool, and with that power, there is some complexity and time to learn it. Okay, so with the crystal reports, some people tend to avoid it if they don't want to spend time learning something else when they might already know Excel. And again, the Sage Intelligence report is a little more interactive because once you run the report out, then you can still go and change the parameters if you wish to do so. With the crystal reports, you have to close it down and rerun the report using different parameters. So I'm going to look at the crystal reports first. first thing we have to state is that Sage 300 uses the Crystal Report engine. Now, what that means is that you can print a report and it will run. You know it's Crystal Reports because you can look and see the extension. So it is a Crystal report, but you cannot typically, or you cannot modify that report unless you have the Crystal Report program. So you'd have to purchase that program. It doesn't come with Sage 300. So you would have to purchase the program and then you would have to learn how to use it. Okay. What I'm going to show you today also is how, if you do create a custom report, how to add it to the Sage 300 desktop. I will also talk about the customization directories. We'll look at an existing report that it exists in the GL right now that brings out quantity information. A lot of people are not aware of it simply because they haven't gone and tried to use it, right? But if it's pretty easy, it's just another option when you're printing the report. And I'll talk about that when I dive into the actual program. So at this point, let's just go and do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my program itself. I'm just, oops, I already started it. So I should not have clicked on that, but let's cancel and close that off. Yes, I have one already open. Okay, so here, what I want to look at is all the reports in the general ledger is all the I would say, financial reports are based right here. All these reports here are Crystal reports. So if I were to print a trial balance, for example, here I would ask what sort of options you want, right? And then what you would do is you would go and hit print, or P, okay? And then that would generate the Crystal report. So if you notice way up at the top, in the top bar here, you would see the name of the report. You would see that it is GLTRLP 3.rpt. So the .rpt, this is the extension for Crystal reports. Okay, now notice that this is pretty much set. Now there's some things that you can do inside here, like you can do a search for if you wanted to find something in particular. You can also export this report to Excel, choose an Excel format and export it. So there are things that you can do with the report that runs out Crystal report. Okay, so again, you have the opportunity here to when you're running reports to print it. If you wanted to do it for a particular set of accounts, you can then have to do it, select the appropriate options that you want, and then run it again. So that's how you would run Crystal reports. And all these are Crystal reports. Now, if you wanted to email these reports, then typically in Sage 300, what you'd have to do is go under print destination. Then you'd say, okay, whether you wanted to go to preview like I did, or if you wanted to go directly to the printer, or to a file, save it as a file, which can be stored in a particular location, or in fact, email it to someone else. You would go into the print destination, make your selection, and save it. And then when you print the report, it will use whatever print destination that you set up. So if you wanted to email a particular report, that's great. But then when you open up the report the next time, you have to remember, go back and change the print destination. Okay, now if you had created a report already, somebody gave you a report, it's created, you might want to store it in a particular location where it's easy to find, because when you upgrade, if the standard file it might be overwritten, and therefore well, it will create a new file, actually, a new folder actually, but you won't have your standard reports in it. So in that case, it might be easier just to put it in one custom folder or something, so it's easy to back up. Now, let's suppose you do have such a file. Somebody created a new Crystal report for you. If you want to add it to the desktop, you just simply click New, Reports, give the report a name. I'm just going to call it test. And if you don't want anybody else to see it, this is just for you. And you go next, and then you browse to wherever that crystal report is. So in my case, I'm just going to select this for now, just to show you. And now we have the ability to just click on this and the report will come up. If there are parameters, then you would have to select the parameters and then it would run the report. You can also change the icon, of course. So you can go to properties, change icon, and in this case, you would select from one of these icons here. So, you can create different icons if you want, but if you want to create different icons, you have to purchase another program. So, it's easier just to use the existing icons. So you can add that to your desktop. The same thing applies whether you're using visual workflow processes. You can add a similar type thing like this. So it can be used on the Sage 300 desktop easily and add the icon in either in the visual workflow process or in the standard desktop. Okay, the other thing I wanted to talk about today very quickly is something that people don't see often because where it's located is under administrative services. And what happened is people generally don't have rights to the administrative service, most users. So under administrative services, there's something called customized directory. So if you were to set up let's say an invoice. Let's say you have customers in the U.S., but your invoice looks different if you're invoicing a U.S. customer versus let's say a Canadian customer. The invoices are slightly different, right? So for whatever reason you want that to happen. Now, let's say we have a particular user who deals with all of the U.S. customers, right? So when that user logs in and prints an invoice, let's say he doesn't want to be bothered and he has to identify which customer it is, etc. So if that is the case, we would set up a customized directory, right? We would put in the name of the user, what company, if it's just for one particular company, and then we would put in the directory where the particular crystal report is located. Okay, and when that person logs in and prints the report or prints the crystal report, it will first of all, what happens, it goes and search the customized directory. And if that person's name is in there with the company, then it will select based on the location, the particular crystal report to use. So that person might not be even aware that they're doing this, just going to click on the print button and it automatically prints in that format. While somebody who deals with Canadian customers, on the other hand, all they will do is go in, print their reports. There's nothing under their name in the customized directory, so then it will default to the standard crystal report. Okay. Now, there are certain things that you can do. For example, if I had several companies and I want this person to print using this particular report for different companies, then instead of putting the name of a company here, I'll put an asterisk. What if I wanted all the people, if they're using this particular company, to print the invoices using a certain file? Then, of course, I'll put an asterisk inside here and maybe leave the name of the particular company, okay? Or if I don't want the standard reports to be used, I put an asterisk here, and therefore it will come inside here. All the users for all the companies would then use this particular form, right? So this is a way of automating that process so they don't have to think about it, selecting the particular crystal report. So there's one interesting thing. I actually printed it already. And this arose because somebody wanted when they were doing vacation accrual, they wanted to have the report print out the number of hours in the general ledger report. Now, if you think about it, if you are keeping hours for vacation, it doesn't actually show up in the general ledger because in the general ledger we only have money amounts. However, what we could do is we can create a quantity amount for that particular account, call the unit hours, and then when we create the adjusting payables, we can put in the number of hours. So I will quickly demonstrate that. So you would go into your chart of accounts. Now I quickly set up one on the I think it was the petty cash account. I know typically you wouldn't do petty cash, but this is just an example to show you the process. I see here I use maintain quantities. The units, I call it hours, right? I also went into account 4000 and I created units again for this account. But this time, what I did was I used here for the units, it was the number of items. So you can call it the units anything that you want. Okay. Now, now this what I'm about to do only works in the general ledger journal entry. So if you were, let's say, doing an invoice for a sales account of 4,000 and you use, let's say, accounts receivable, you can't add the quantity in accounts receivable. So you would have to post it, wait till it gets into the general ledger transaction batch list. You would then open up the reports. I'm just going to create a new one here. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that account, let's say 1,000. I think that's the petty cash. And you would notice here, if I scroll a little bit to the right, there's a quantity field. So I can also look at it this way, of course. So I would see here is a quantity field. So I already have some numbers inside there because I've already posted. So let's add another 100. Okay. Now I have to know that it's hours, of course. And I'm going to add, I have to do another line just to get it balanced so I can post it. So I'm going to go, let's say the bank operating, and I am going to, I should have put let's do a 100, let's say 50, $50, 50. And here I should have put in a number here. I'm going to put in 50 tab. So now when I tab through that, it balances. I'm going to add that entry. I am going to, let's post it. So I click on the post button. Yes. Okay, so now once I do that, I might want to print a report, the trial balance or transaction listing. So it will sort of keep track of the amount. So I go into my general ledger report, trial balance, and I am going to select the quantity report, right? I'm going to leave everything else as is, and then I'm going to print it out. So it's way below down there, and now it's going to print. And you notice here, I have the units, which I said it was going to be hours, and I have the quantity that I put in. Okay, now if you look down here, if I go to the 4,000 account, I had done something similar already, but then I called it the number of items. So you can associate some sort of quantity with an account. Like I said, I've seen it used in the case where they were accumulating hours for vacation, and they would have to do an adjusting entry in order to have the vacation payables look reasonable, post it, and then they would automatically reverse that entry the next period. Okay, but somebody can see the number of hours that that calculation was based on. So that was one of the use of that, which I thought was a very interesting way of using the quantity field. Okay, so again, this is just a standard crystal report. As you can see, when you are printing the report, you have a chance to adjust which report you're printing by selecting this here. Okay. So let me go back to my PowerPoint. Make that full screen. So I talked about the Crystal Report Engine. When you print most of the report in the Sage 300, it uses the Crystal Report Engine. If you want to customize it, then you would have to have the program Crystal Report, how to add Crystal Report icon on your desktop, the use of the customization directory. I also demonstrate the quantity. So in summary, Crystal Reports is a powerful tool, but with that power, there is a learning curve to be able to use it. So there is a little bit more involved in getting these items. Sometimes they can be complicated reports that are data piped reports. So those type of reports, sometimes it's hard to modify them. And what sometimes people would need to add is sub-reports to add or to change the reports. The next thing I want to talk about is the financial reporter. So the financial reporter, as I mentioned earlier when I was comparing them, works only with the general ledger. Okay, so it is Excel based, and basically you create a specification files, and based on the specification files, when you run it, it will then put the information out into Excel. Okay. So there's a number of different types of data that you can access with the financial reporter. You can access information, net balances, you can do historical current balances for any range of accounts, net changes for a particular fiscal period, for the quarter, for half the year. You can also look at balances or net changes in the reporting currency. You can do comparative figures, complete or year to date. You can do budget versus actual. So there's a number of ways of drawing particular type of data from the general ledger. Okay. And then I'll show you also the drill down feature in one of these reports. So let's go back, let's go to the program itself. And this is where you would see the financial reporter. It is manifested in the general ledger through two icons. If you know, or if you are going to run a report that's already done and you don't need to make any changes, then you can simply use the print financial statement icon. If you want to see how the report is designed and run it, then you might want to modify the report even. If you want to do that, then you would use a statement designer. Okay, so since we are running out of time, typically what I will do is run it both ways, but I'm going to just go directly into the statement designer. When I start it, what you would see is a Excel file opening. So Excel would open up, right? And you might be curious and say, wait a minute, this is just Excel. But if you look very closely, you would see there's an add-in, right? And that add-in brings in macros that was obtained through opening up Excel through the statement designer. But generally, it works just like any other Excel program. I have to find a file. So if I go to File and let's say I open up, right? And let's say I go to my computer and I search my location. Wherever I see it is going to be, let's browse local drive. I just doing the Sage 300 General Ledger. ENG. So what you notice here is that you would see a number of accounts. Some of them, of course, I had modified before, but generally the ones with names like Quick Inc. 1, Quick Inc. 2, those are standard reports that come with the system. You also have things like Quick BAL, which is the balance sheet. Again, some people find these names very irritating because what does Quick Inc. mean, Really, you can change the name if you want. Quick Ink really is a income statement with one column, right? For example, I know that Quick Ink 4 has a drill down feature. So what I would do, let's say if we wanted to run one of these, so I just select it, right? What it will do, it will bring inside here the specification file, right? So this is financial statement, right? So this is just the code. It doesn't give me the actual data, the actual information. These are just how it's created. And all of these things here mean something. For example, this is a wildcard. This is says, give me all the accounts. And then in the next column, it says limited to account group 15. So as you can see, I've had the experience where some people say, I print my financial statement and using these things and nothing happens. Well, first of all, what I would do is I would check to see how your accounts are set up and whether you assign the appropriate standard groups to it. If you created your own groups, then it might not show up on these standard reports. You would have to modify these reports. So you have to be aware of how this brings in the information. So right now I'm going to run it. I am going to go to my add-in, go to FR, go to FR view, and what would come up is a screen that's very similar to the if you're running it with print financial reports. So inside here, I'm going to select this year and period, and then I'm just going to hit OK. So this file is going to remain open. And what it's going to do is going to generate below in a print area. So when I print this, only this would show up, not all these codes on top here. So this will show up, and then this will be your statement, right? So this will be your financial statement. Now, of course, if you want to prove, if I want to learn this, there is documentation available with the program. You just go into the docs folder and you look for the financial report designer user guide. And there's a little tutorial in chapter 2. So, but what I want to do right now is I'm just going to delete this to show you how it works. So right now we see I am looking at give me all the accounts. So at present, what I see is I only see in this section sales account. So all the sales and it's combined. So then I went and I changed this. I deleted that limited to account group 15. And then I'm going to run it again. So I'm going to go to my financial FR view. I'm going to select and hit OK. So it's going to rerun, but this time using this specification. And what I see now is in the print area where we put all where the output goes, I see here a list of all the accounts. See? And in that case, because I used the wildcard and say, give me all the accounts. Of course, I didn't delete the rest of the bottom, so I would see everything else as it were from the previous report. So if you wanted to learn about the financial reporter, there is a starting point, as I mentioned before, and I would show you that very quickly. So if I go into wherever your program is installed, you can also go to help. You can go to product documents. Now in the new version, it goes off to a website, which if you don't have a web link, of course it will not work, but it's still there in the old fashioned way. You go to wherever your program is installed, you go to the folder and you look for something called documentation or docs. And inside here, under ENG, which means English, you would see here a file, a PDF file, so you can move it around. And in that PDF file is Financial Reporter. You open it up and there will be instructions here on the various codes, etc. So there is lots of information here. Of course, if I were to toot my own horn a little bit, we do offer courses on Financial Reporter. So if you want to learn how to modify, how to create things from scratch, we have classes here. Now, what I want to do also is, so you can see there's tons of information. I always recommend you start with chapter 2, as I mentioned before, and then go into the more in-depth thing. So the tutorial gives you step-by-step approach to learning how to do it. Okay, so there's one other report I wanted to run, and that report would have the drill downs. So, okay, I didn't close out of that. Okay, go back inside here. I don't need this anymore. Do you want to save? Don't save. I'm going to close out this other one just so that I don't have so many things open at once. And now I'm going to, oh, I closed Excel. Okay, so I'm going to start again. Excel is going to open. I am going to go to my file. I just have to be a little bit patient, trying to get everything done at once. So minimize that. So I go file, open, and this time I'm looking for Quick Ink 4. Why am I doing this? Because I want to show you the drill down feature. So it looks like an ordinary spec, but in this particular case, I am using a formula, a particular type of formula. It has FRTRNA, so the T makes a big difference. And when I run this now, so when I go to add-ins, FR view, I hit OK. I'm not concerned too much about the other settings. What I will see in the print area is the numbers, but in this case, there's a little red corner. If I highlight one of these and I click on FR drill down, what I would notice is that I will get all the numbers that go into making up that particular number, so I can query it. If I'm curious, I'm looking at this, for example, and what is this? ER adjustment. Who did an adjustment? Okay, so I want to check out and see what that's about. So I just double click on that line and it will bring up the general journal entry, right? Now, this did not originate in the as a journal entry. It was entered here when it was posted from the subledger module AR. So it's an AR adjustment. So if I want to drill back down to the actual AR adjustment, then what I would do is click on this, and now what the field that is going to be opened, and of course my resolution is a little bit too big for this. So let me see. Okay, I'll have to do it here very quickly. So just bear with me for a second. It will go back to that particular module. So if I were to, so whenever you get that, because I'm running the images, I'm just going to quickly change it to, let's make it a little bit smaller, I think. And apply, hit OK. Okay. Okay, so now let's see if I click on this. Oh, let me make this full screen so I get a little more room. And now you would see it went to the AR adjustment entry. So I followed what I did before. All I have to do now is I'm in the general journal entry. I click on this and I will open up the AR adjustment entry. I have to adjust the size again. So yeah, it will work. Okay, so I just showed you that. Okay, this is the joys of demonstrating live. Okay, now so you can see how useful this is when you want to query the numbers before you send out a statement to someone. I find this useful, and often I would use it to test, to verify, to confirm that my numbers are correct. Okay. Okay, so let me go back to my slide presentation. So I'll minimize this for a second. And okay. So if I make this full screen again, okay. So we talked about the financial reporter, we talked about the specification files, the financial report features, it uses Excel. So once I get the data in, then I can do things like I can create charts, etc., based on the Excel report. Okay, How do you go about the steps for creating a financial report? Well, it starts with the design of the chart of accounts. If your chart of account is properly organized and categorized into various groupings, then it's very easy to do it. Also, if you notice on the standard reports, what they have is they have give me all the accounts, but then limited to the ones that belong to a particular grouping. I like this technique simply because if you added an account and you added it to that group, then it will automatically get included in the financial report. Some people at the where I had the percent sign, they actually have account grouping. So they say account group 4,000 to dash 4,020. If you created account 4,025, it will not be included in that group, and therefore it will not show up on your financial statement. So in that case, depending on how you created your financial report or spec files, you have to be aware that if you add an account, you need to verify that it is being picked up on the report itself. Okay, so you don't want to produce financial statement that doesn't include the appropriate accounts. Now, I have a few minutes. I'm going to talk about the intelligence reporting. The intelligence reporting, I used to say it's new, but it's no longer new anymore. It's been around for a while. There's lots of videos on it, but it's a very powerful tool. Of course, it not only works with the general ledger, but it works with all the modules. So AR, AP, different modules, different databases, CRM, whatever you wanted to work with, as long as the data is ODBC compliant, then you can use the intelligence reporting. Now, if you're using intelligence reporting in the general ledger, I highly recommend that you have the designer, the report designer. If you ask me to create a report and you don't have a report designer, I think twice. I wouldn't do it. It's just so time consuming, right? It is possible, but it's time consuming. So just let me explain the different pieces of this so you get a rough idea how it works. I think this diagram here is a very good diagram for explaining the whole process. So first of all, if you start on the left-hand side, you can see that the report intelligence can use different databases. One of these could be Sage 300, or it could be Sage CRM, for example, as long as the database is ODBC compliant. Then the connector would pull data in, and it would create what we call containers. So you might be saying to yourself, oh, what is he talking about? So I like to use a simple analogy, and I will talk about Home Depot or home hardware or whatever you want to call these big box hardware stores. So they have everything that you need, lumber, anything to build a house, you can go there and get it. So let's say somebody is interested in toy houses or doll houses, and they say, wait a minute, 5,000 people came in and asked me about doll houses. Well, why don't we just build some ourselves? We can hire somebody and they give them some workspace and they can build these doll houses and we can sell them, right? So they hire a person, comes in to build a dollhouse. He says, oh, I need some lumber. He goes to the lumber section, gathers lumber. Then he comes back to the working area. He cuts out the pattern. Then he says, oh, I need some fasteners. So he runs back down to the warehouse. He gets the fastener. Oh, I need some paint. And it goes on like that. Obviously, it's not very efficient. Somebody says, well, why don't you plan what you need for the house? So he says, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. So then he says, okay, this is a list of all the things that I need to build this dollhouse. And it's all going to go into this work area. So this is what the container is like. The container, we have thousands of pieces of information in your database. The connector is simply bringing some of that data into a work area. And then in that work area, you actually, when you go to build a report, you're going to use the report manager the report manager is like the work area. Okay. So in the connector brings a subset of the data in a container, which is then used by the report manager to create reports. When you run the report, it pushes it out into the data out into Excel, right? So you can see here, push it into Excel. When you save the template, it saves it back to the report manager. So again, that's a big addition or a big advantage, I should say, because you don't have to repeat the process of formatting. It's already done, right? The data would be updated, but the formatting would remain. Now, one thing I have to point out is if you're using the general ledger, you notice there's something called a report designer. Again, I don't know how to emphasize if you want to create reports in a general ledger, highly recommend that you have the report designer license. Makes life so much easier because what happens is a number of sub-reports will have been created for you, and then all you have to do is drag and drop, and either using the task pane or using the layout generator. One of these two options here. Okay. You can also, there's something called reporting trees, and that is used for if you have different departments and want to report off different departments. As you see at the bottom, the last box in the corner, here is called distribution. You can distribute these reports, either email, you can put it into a particular folder, you can send it to an FTP location, and you can do all of this at once. So this is the beauty of the intelligence report, one of the advantages of using it. Okay, let me just dive off into the program itself. Maybe what I will do is quickly run a report. Oops, it's still running. I'm just going to close out of this just to complete that. I'm going to go into my what is this? Close out of that. Intelligence reporting. I'm going to go into my report manager. Normally, of course, we run courses on this again. This is just this session today is just a high-level overview of the different reporting options. To go into each one, would take some more time. I am going to select, let's say, if I scroll down a little bit, William, I'm looking for one that enter. Okay, let's see if I scroll down here. Rolling trend income statement. So what I have here is I have all the steps in this particular one, this particular report. Let me set it up to run because it's going to take a while and then explain a little bit what is happening here. So I'm running it, and if you notice, it's flashing. So it runs, and then it changes, it comes back again, and it's going to do that about maybe 12 times. Each time it's doing it, what is in data in, it's actually running a sort of sub-report. So there's 12 different reports that make up this already, right? Of course, you don't have to worry about it because when you want to create a report in the GL, you just use a template, right? And then you start from there, and then you just drag and drop using the task pane, of course. So all of this is done for you, okay? So it might look like, oh my God, why is it taking so long? But what it's actually doing is saving you time in the long run by creating all these reports for you, okay? And once it runs out, okay, of course, Excel will open up. It's going to put the information out into Excel, okay? So if I were to click on Excel, you will notice that it's flashing by because it's putting a number of the data in, and then soon it's going to run it out. And what I have here is I have used this. Let me just make it a little bit bigger. So I've created some reports, and when I was teaching how to do it, I actually created separate tabs so that people can see the flow. Plus, it makes it easier to explain what I did in the report if I were to explain to someone else. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on, I think step 7 is the last one. So it will come up here. So I'm just going to close this down to give me some more space so you can see it and expand this. Oh, this is not, I already went step 7. Okay, so here, so this is a rolling income statement. For example, if this is period 5, and you would notice if I scroll a little bit to the left, it will give me 2019, the previous year, because I want 12 periods back. So what happens when it changes to the 6th period? Right, so if the current period is the 6th period, just type in 6, tab, and automatically, you see it changes, and then I have 12 periods back. So the last period here will be period 6. Okay. If I said, okay, I want to do the analysis as if this was period 4, tab. See how fast that was? In the blink of an eye, you now have it up to 2019. I've also added some charts and stuff like that. So I here, so you can see the different periods. So you can do that. I also showed here you can use the spark lines to get an idea how this is performing, right? Because if you look across to left to right, it just looks like a bunch of numbers. So it's hard. Accountants can see the flow, but sometimes non-accountants can't see whether it's going up or down. So using Excel features like Sparkline, of course, would help you do that. And what I have inside here, of course, I know this is unfinished. This is deliberate. Somebody says, what is period 3? I don't know what period 3 is. Was that March? Was that February? So the accountants, of course, would know this, but you are presenting this to non-accountants. So all you have to do is just a simple formula, right? Where I change it, I said, oh, this is period 2020. I put the year in. And if I drag this across, of course, then you would see the appropriate year. But you notice this is just a formula, Excel formula that looks at the number and then changes it into a month, right? So again, that is simply using the power of Excel. Given a choice, most accountants would love to either they know Excel already, or they would more likely, if you give them a choice between learning, let's say, Crystal Report and Excel, hands down, Excel would win all the time in terms of these sort of reports. Okay, so that is one of the advantages of the using the report, the intelligence reporting. Now, I know I have had a comment before saying, hey, wait, that doesn't look like a financial statement. What's all this stuff? I don't see that on a financial statement. Well, it's very simple. All you do is you put a heading inside here, then you change the print area so only this will print. So of course you can modify this so that only the print area, and you can still leave these things up here. So if I wanted to change the year to 2019, look how fast that is. 2000, maybe I should put a 0 in, maybe 019, tab. So you see how fast the numbers would change. Of course, I don't have in this particular data anything for 2018, but it's just that quick. So again, one of the advantages between, or the differences between this and let's say the the financial reporter, is this interactivity that you can get. And again, I quickly want to point out, which I mentioned before, that you can manage or you can send these reports by different methods, right? You can email it, you can send it to a particular file, you can do a FTP location, you can do all three at once. It's not one or the other. You can do two of the three or all three altogether. The email is particularly nice because what you can do is in the heading, you can set a criteria and say, email this to a particular person if a certain criteria is met. So let's say I have a actual budget, and if this amount goes over, if the actual is over the budgeted amount, I want to send this report to George or Jane, simply because they are responsible for that item. So I can set this up so only if it goes over. If it doesn't go over, then they don't get a report. Or I can do it the other way around. If it's under, they get, hey, congratulations. I see you are managing, you are keeping the account within your budgeted amount. In the body of the thing, you can also put in information on based on the report. So I can say, hi Jane, I noticed that the actual amount is this, the budget amount is this for this particular period. So keep note that you might have to be more vigilant with this particular line item, something like that. And it will print the actual amounts on this for a particular period, etc. Okay, so it's a very useful tool. Now, the next thing you can do is, besides hitting send now, is you have the ability to automate the process even more using the Windows scheduling program or the Windows scheduler. And you can have this program automatically create the reports and email it, put it to a file location, put it to a FTP site. So you have that option also. Okay, so again, keeping track of time, I just want to go back to my financial reporter, go back to my next slide, which I talked about here, make that full screen so that you have a better view of it, right? So you can see I didn't talk about the different components of the report, but I think I covered a gist of what the intelligence report can do in the general ledger. And most important, as different from the other modules doesn't use the report designer. So the report designer, if you're creating using intelligent reporting, you should have the report designer for reports from the general ledger. That's what I wanted to emphasize. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about very quickly is the Intelligence Reporting Cloud. The Intelligence Reporting Cloud is used in the Sage 300 web screens, right? Now, a lot of people assume that the Intelligence Reporting Cloud and the intelligence reporting is the same thing. It is not. In fact, at this point in time, there is no conversion. So if you have report in intelligence reporting, it doesn't convert to in the intelligence reporting cloud. You'd have to recreate it. So that's one of the downside. But if you're using the web screens for the general ledger, you would use the intelligence reporting cloud. It is very similar to the intelligence reporting. So if you know the intelligence reporting, using and creating reports in the intelligence reporting cloud is not an issue. It's very easy to learn. So I would now, because I noticed the time, I'm going to open the floor to questions and answers. Somebody's asking about how do you create a crystal report from scratch? So creating a crystal report from scratch, the first thing you would want to do is where is your data located? And if you want to find out about the data, because the data is contained in tables and the field names are sometimes different from what you expect, you might want to use something called the application object model. Another question yes, I do want to confirm that the intelligence reporting cloud used with the web screens is not the same as intelligence reporting. It is two different programs altogether. One is web-based, one is not. And you cannot create a report in intelligence reporting and then transfer it to the intelligence reporting cloud. Not at this point anyway. I have asked about it and they say it might come in the future, but it's not there right now. Okay, so what I would like to do is say thank you all for viewing this web session. We will have a number of sessions coming up on the 26th. We'll have one on the Sage alerts and workflow. Look forward to seeing you then. Bye for now.